It was funny. We didn't record an episode last week just because I was still getting excited for Thanksgiving. But we are back. College basketball never left us. We're back, though. College Basketball Weekly. Luke Taylor here, Sammy D. We got a great show. We got one of our favorites, Coach Frank Martin from UMass, joining us. And also, too, this show's brought to you by the Full Court Network. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review to the College Basketball Weekly. Also, the Full Court Press, the college basketball show. We got a good one tomorrow. We got Coach Jerome Tang from Kansas State, the Wildcats, joining us, and that should be a good one. But, dude, how was it last week? Was college basketball nuts or what?
Yeah, it's pretty wild what's going on out there. And I love this time of year because you learn so much about which teams you like, right? Like which teams play hard, which teams are still kind of finding their identity, players that, we weren't talking about in preseason, have now come up big. Now they're national names. Coaches who we may not have been talking about preseason, who have their shit together and they're surprising the entire country. Right.
Yep.
And, but Thanksgiving week, feast week, as basketball aficionados call it. Lots of tournaments, lots of MTEs, which I like. I think we'll maybe get into some coaches who don't like the MTE scenario. But it's we talked a lot 2 weeks ago about the Maui Classic, so I want to start there. And that was kind of the big storyline, right? Last week with what happened there and some surprises, and UConn going 0-3, right?
Yeah, 8th place. But you know what? We are the Tigers, the mighty, mighty Tigers. It was the battle of Tigers. Listen, is UConn okay? Absolutely. They lost 3 games. Let's be honest. The whole Coach Hurley theatrics to some people. We actually talked to Coach Martin a little bit about it just because he's known for his theatrical performances back in the day. But let me tell you, the thing that people are kind of missing the boat on, and scheduling is so important, at least in my eyes, and to others too. UConn's first 4 games were against Sacred Heart. They won by 36. New Hampshire 39, Lemoyne 41, and East Texas A&M by 45. They were not, I am sorry, and I have expertise in coaching, as you know, at the collegiate Division I level. I would have not scheduled 4 cupcakes. No offense to those programs. But as you know, as a former D1 athlete, when you play, you sometimes get, I want to say lazy, but you play down to your competition or you get laxed. Like you're not being pressured. You're not putting in these positions. So I wonder if maybe Coach Hurley maybe schedule, I'm not telling him, he's one of the greatest coaches, especially in the last two years, but maybe potentially the rate he's going at all time, or one of the, the Mount Rushmores. But I don't think they're ready for what Memphis gave them. Memphis gave him some sweet barbecue sauce. And you know how much I love Memphis.
Yeah, we both love Memphis. You've been on the you've been really high on Coach Penny, for a couple of years now. And they're showing up, man. And it is again, this early in the season, I think when you look at like a UConn Memphis matchup, Memphis is going in there to say like, hey, let's prove to the world who we are, right? UConn's going in there with not as much concern, right? I Hurley has a method. I'm not going to try to dissect it because that's not what you've already said it. He's one of the best coaches to ever coach the game. I think he's, in the conversation as the best coach right now. And if he's not in anybody's top 3 or 4 coaches right now, then you're not watching college basketball the past couple of years. So it's for anybody to kind of judge him on that performance. I think it's the wrong thing to do. I think that UConn's only going to get better and better throughout the year.
They're young too, right? 2 of their top scorers are freshmen.
To some degree, they're young. And they're, again, it's like, you've got, 3 guys go in the first round last year. So it's like, you're replacing pieces. They're still learning to play together. All these things that, it's somebody like Coach Hurley loves to do. and he's going to figure it out. I mean, they're going to win the Big East. I know a lot of people are like, oh, they're not going to win the Big East now. They're going to win the Big East, and they're going to make a good run in the NCAA tournament. And yeah, I mean, they dropped like 20 something spots in the AP poll. Who cares? I don't think Coach Hurley cares. Honestly,
no.
At the end of the day, that's what happens. Do I think anybody like in Stores, Connecticut is like concerned right now? No, they're looking at their 2 national championship rings from the past, 2 years, and the dynasty that Coach Hurley's put together. And like, I don't think anybody who's close to the program is like super concerned right now.
No. Do you think Auburn deserves to be the number 1 team in the nation right now?
No. I mean, I think that I think it still should be Kansas. Kansas hasn't lost yet. They've beaten good programs. They've beaten Duke, they've beaten North Carolina, they've beaten Michigan State. Auburn obviously has some really great wins, but until Kansas loses, I don't think they should drop from that number 1 spot.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people that disagree with me. So
yeah, well, Auburn has the number 1 rebounder of the year, 12.9 rebounded, number 1 rebounder in the nation, 12.9 rebounds per game. Also is averaging 20.7, 20 ranked 22nd in the nation. So you know how much I love Johnny.
Jonai Broom, baby. Yeah, I mean
I call him Johnny. It's Canadian.
But he's he's the front runner right now for SEC Player of the Year, in the mix for AP Player of the Year in the country. Again, I mean, Auburn's a team that we've talked quite a bit. The first couple weeks of the show is how good are they, right? And how good of a coach is Bruce Pearl? And you and I have gone back and forth off air about, is Coach Pearl elite or not elite, right? I don't put him in that elite category because of his postseason record the past 10 years. He's made it past this. He's only made it past the first week of the tournament once in 10 years at Auburn. That's
maybe this is the year, baby. Like Cubs fans or Browns fans.
So it's kind of like, I mean, it's if we had SEC Unfiltered on here a couple weeks ago, and after that show we talked a little bit about it. We're like, this year could make or break Coach Pearl's legacy, right? Like, I mean, the talent he has on this team, they should be a Final Four team. They should be a national contender, and they've showed that early in the season. Playing well early in the season and recruiting has never been a problem for Coach Pearl. It's really what happens in March they just always seem to be one of those teams. When you look at the bracket, you're like, okay, yeah, I could see them losing in the second round again, right?
Yep.
But they are more. This is the most dominant team I've ever seen Coach Pearl with.
Yeah, so, I wouldn't disagree with you, but I'm excited about Memphis, and I think what Memphis did, bringing in Tyrese Hunter, transfer, he's done it at Iowa State and Texas, and then PJ Haggard, he's just a freaking ball player, shooting 49% from the field goal attempts, 49%. That's ridiculous. But the 2 questions I want to ask you, 2 programs, separate questions. Should we be surprised with Drake and Coach Ben McCollum?
Yeah, to some degree. I mean, the people who have followed Coach McCollum throughout his career were not as surprised. I grew up in Kansas City, had a lot of good friends, went to Northwest Missouri State. So it's like I followed that program in Division II, and I mean,
is that Kirksville, Missouri?
No. He has been so dominant though in Division II, and then I'll put it like this: I'm surprised of how good they are this early. Right, like he brought a lot of his players from Northwest Missouri State.
Brought the culture. Right. That's huge.
And so I wasn't expecting those players to transition to the D1 physicality and speed as quickly as they have. So a lot of people are going to give Coach McCollum a lot of credit, but you've intertwined in your career, through the different divisions and everything. And I mean, there's a huge step up from D2 and D1, from the physicality, the speed of the game, the IQ, all that stuff. So for those guys to pick that up this early, I'm very impressed. So
yeah, Bennett Skirts has won the Max Strus Award. Bennett Skirts is so far leading the national player transfer Division II to Division I Player of the Year award that's named after Max Strus. I just named it, but
I love
another.
it. Let me ask you about the next program on our list,
okay,
and because you wanted to talk about this program a little bit on this episode, and we had Coach Mills on our it was our preseason show.
Yep, Painter. No, just a regular episode.
Just our regular coaches show.
Yep,
and we learned a lot about him, and I'm very impressed with him.
Stairs.
Yeah, he's got such a good story how he's moved up through the ranks, and where he's at with Wichita State. So talk a little about Wichita State. Like, what are you seeing with that team right now?
Well, it's amazing because the American Athletic Conference could be one of the best non-Power 5 conferences right now. East Carolina's picked it up 7-1, Memphis is 6-1, Rice is 7-2, beat Arkansas State and Iona, so they've got some good wins. North Texas, we've had Coach Hodge on here, 6-2. Temple, USF, FAU, and UAB are all right there too. But Wichita State, I think they're favored like 5th or 6th, maybe 4th, 5th, or 6th in the conference. Coach Mills comes from great pedigree. Coach Drew's kind of coaching tree. They're 6-1. Beat a very good Western Kentucky team, Northern Iowa team. They're always good. Beat St. Louis and Minnesota in overtime, then lost pretty bad to Florida Gators. But I really like that program. I'm excited to see them play DePaul on December 14th. But, Justin Hill leads the team. I really like Harlan Beverly. I think he's just great. They got a really good team. So I think I'm not really surprised because I always feel like Coach Mills has a really good second year. I mean, he kind of did that at Oral Roberts too. So I'm really excited about Wichita State. And they got a great, that you're from that neck of the woods, the central United States. They got a great program, great support.
I will say the Shocker fan base is up there with, some of the best in the nation. So when they're a good team, that community really shows up. Do you think the league is a 2-bid league?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's a 3-bid league.
Okay.
But I don't think it's going to happen because I think the powers that be are pissed at the Mountain West last year getting sick. So just saying. But who would you say has the biggest turnaround story of the year so far? I've got a couple. Okay. But I'm curious, who would you say? Give me a couple teams that you think have really kind of surprised the college basketball world.
Yeah, I think on paper, I'm going to look at this a couple ways, right? On paper, I think DePaul is my biggest surprise story of the year. So it's, last year they were 3-29. They're 7-0 right now.
Haven't played anybody.
Yeah, that's why it's like on paper, right? But still, if you would have asked me a couple of weeks before the season started, I would probably have said like, yeah, DePaul's going to be a 500 team when conference starts. Right. And I think that was kind of the consensus. Everyone's like really positive on the Coach Holt hire and, the guys that Coach Holt was able to get to fill a team his first year at DePaul, really impressive. Right. But what they're actually getting wins. Right. And
convincingly too.
Right. Well, how important was that first win of the season when it went into overtime?
Close. It's a little nail biter.
Right? Like what happens to DePaul if he doesn't make that 3-point shot to go into overtime?
Well, they lose. It's called a loss.
What is their season
loss?
Like? Yeah, but what does that season look like, the next couple games? So, you have that kind of momentum. We watch the games and it's good to see. Like, what I love is more and more seats are being filled each game.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can fill that arena when Big East play starts, I can see this team upsetting a couple Big East schools.
Yep.
On paper, I don't think that they should be, but the fact that they have this momentum, Coach Holt has put a culture together to get to 7-0. Which I think was part of the scheduling, right? That he wanted to put together is to get some wins on paper. Again, I mean, you've got the Big 12 Big East Challenge, coming up. So we're going to learn a lot
Tech
about
tonight, baby. Texas
Tech.
Tech
Learn a lot about them, in the next 24 hours here. So, but DePaul on paper is, I think, the biggest turnaround, because I just don't think that there was anybody in the country who was not part of the inside that athletic department who thought that they would be 7-0 right now.
Well, and right? I think what you're saying is call our guy Marty Murphy at the DePaul ticket office and get your DePaul Blue Demons basketball ticket. They play, and just quickly about them, they play in a very interesting schedule. I mean, a good schedule in an interesting way. They get Texas Tech, obviously, tonight in Lubbock. Hopefully they don't get any tortillas thrown at them. Wichita State, Northwestern. They play St. John's. I mean, they've got a really good schedule in December, and I think it'll really kind of be a test of the culture that's been built. And I mean, I love Connor Enright. Love. I just love watching him. I know he follows us on social media too.
Great.
And I think his
mom or dad
is also. He's doing a great job.
DePaul is they're in a Big East conference this year, where I don't think the middle of the Big East is as strong as it's been the past couple of years. So I think I know that there's some wins that they'll be able to pull out there if they keep this momentum up. So on paper, I have them as my biggest surprise this year.
Yep.
Just looking and watching teams, Michigan, man, I am, I've never been a big Michigan big fan, right? But they were 8-24 last year. They bring in Dusty May. They're starting the year 6-1, and when you watch them play, it's the most disciplined Michigan team I've seen in years.
Yep. Yeah. And I like the key. I mean, Danny Wolf from Yale, almost 11 points, almost 10 rebounds a game. Trey Donaldson, Roddy Gale Jr., transfer from Ohio State. They're fun to watch. And they actually last night played Wisconsin, and Wisconsin is one team. I kind of snuck that one in you. John Tonge from Missouri. He averaged 2.6 points a game last year at Missouri. A couple years before, he was at Colorado State, averaged about 14.6. He's averaging 22.9 points a game. This is how crazy how much the Badgers have lost. AJ Storr. Okay, they lost Chucky Hepburn, who's Louisville's leading scorer with 14.6 points a game. So I'm really surprised with Wisconsin. Louisville, I was kind of high on and still am, but they lost Kashawn Pryor, who transferred from USF. He's gone out. He's out for the year with a torn ACL. So I think that's going to change the dynamics. But Renee Smith, I mean, I love Louisville and the Freedom Hall and all that stuff, the Yum Center now. But Oklahoma is one that if you would have told me they would be set at 7-0 with wins against Louisville, Arizona, and Providence, I'd be like, you're crazy.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. And I mean, they're doing it consistently. So, and then you got Tennessee, who that should tell you how good of coach Rick Barnes is. But Charles Lanier, we talked about him with Coach Driscoll, UNF transfer.
Yep. So, moving on to some of our, you had a great interview with Coach Frank Martin in UMass, right? What are you kind of seeing with UMass? With their start, it's kind of, it's an untypical Frank Martin start of the season. Just from
you could say it about Coach Hurley too.
Sure.
Yeah, about a couple of programs. Yeah.
So I think it's really interesting that you're able to get some time with Coach Martin and hear what.
It's supposed to be 5 or 10 minutes, 22 minutes, but no, I mean they listen. Rashul Diggins, I mean he's a ball player. He's averaging just under 12. Daniel Haskins Sanford. I mean Jalen Curry, who had a great freshman year last year. I mean, he's averaging 13.8, 5.5. I think they've just played good teams. I mean, they lost or they beat New Hampshire, and then they lost 4 in a row to West Virginia, who probably is one of my biggest turnarounds too, when you look at what Coach DeVries has done with Javon Small, who transferred from Oklahoma State, and then he brought his son, Tucker DeVries, who big fan. They played Louisiana Tech. Louisiana Tech's unbeaten. I mean, they got batchoed. Lose to Hofstra. They lost to Hofstra in overtime. They could have easily won that game. No offense to the Bisons of Hofstra. They lost to Florida State. So they're playing a really good non-conference schedule, and I think they'll be okay. I mean, once they get into season, I think UMass Are they going to win 20 games? I don't know, but they're going to be competitive. They're going to be right there in the Atlantic 10. So I think it's a good time to kind of talk to Coach Martin and hear what he's got to say. We talk a little bit about coaching intensity. We talk about a lot of good things. So let's hear from Coach Martin from the UMass Minutemen. So we got one of our favorites, obviously, Coach Frank Martin, legend in his own right, UMass head coach. It's pretty funny. You see on social media all the time, it's like you lose a game or two and the season's over. We don't need to get started about that. Struggling a little bit, 3-5, but I mean, let's be honest. You've played you have a really good non-conference schedule. West Virginia, I mean, Coach DeVries is doing a great job. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't know about La Tech, about Louisiana Tech. We've had Coach Hester on the show. Daniel Bacho, you probably have nightmares about him. Really talented. Hofstra. I mean, Hofstra is doing phenomenal. Yeah. You got wins against Harvard, wins against New Jersey Institute of Tech. You got a pretty good schedule coming up still, and then you go into conference play. How difficult has it been for you to kind of keep the train going in the right direction?
I look back, we make decisions in the spring that we have to live in the fall. And one of the things that we do is our schedule. And when I put the schedule together, I thought it was like, all right, I like it. Now that we're in it, I'm like, I probably didn't do our team right by our team by the way I did our schedule. So what do I mean? We played a scrimmage at Iona. We played an exhibition game at Providence. We've played 5 of our first 7 away from home. And it's like, I'm not, and we played some really good teams. Other than Florida State, every other game we've played, I mean, with 5 minutes to go, we're right there. Yep. And regardless, but people make too much of, you were down this or you were here. At the end of the day, it's about winning.
Yep.
And with 4 or 5 minutes to go, are you in a place where you can win the game? And at West Virginia, we're in a 3-point game, I think, and we missed 4 of our last 5 free throws in the last minute, 10 seconds.
Yeah.
If we make our free throw, do we win? I don't know, but giving ourselves a chance. Same thing with La Tech. Hofstra, we should have won the game. Missed a free throw to win the game. And I'm not even going to get into the whistle part. At the end of the game was one of the worst calls I've ever been around. That would have solidified our win. But it is what it is. It's all part of it. It's dealing with adversity. That's the thing that makes it hard in today's climate. It's not the adversity. The season brings out adversity. You deal with a good game, bad game. I played good. You didn't play good. Winning, losing, the whole shebang. Coach yelled at me, didn't yell at me, whatever. But adversity is what we were told. Understand, it's not comfortable, but you don't lay down. You got to get up and go do it again. And in the temperature that we're in right now, we're not training our young people to embrace adversity. We train them to run away from adversity.
No, we do, Coach. It's called quit the day after the game or just transfer.
Correct. We're training them, to run away from adversity. Or as adults, we try to take the adversity out of their life. So when they're dealing with it, they don't know how to handle it. And but with that said, we fought. We didn't win some games. It is what it is. But last time I checked, fans and the media overreact to the next day. We sign up for the season.
Yeah.
And if you're overreacting to a bad day, that means you're going to overreact to a good day. You have to learn how to deal with the day you're living and then be prepared for the next one so you can continue to grow. But we signed up to play 30 games. When 30 games are over and done with, then we can all pass judgment on our season, our team, our good and our bad. Whatever, we're 3-5, I think, right now. We're 8 games in. We're not in a phase to create judgment. We're in a phase of continuing to understand each other so we can deal with the next day.
Yeah. Well, I think also in this day and age of college basketball, I mean, you have some returning players, which is huge for a program to culture, to deal with, the rough times and the couple losses here and there, the close wins, what have you. Do you think your non-conference recruiting, not non-conference scheduling philosophy is kind of going to change and evolve after this season? Or is it just going to be like, you know what, I'm going to put the best schedule forward I can, get the team ready for it? Because, I mean, let's be honest, games are not won and lost. I mean, a season is not defined by losing a couple games in November, right? I mean, in the A10 this year especially, you know, it should be a multi-bid league, but it's going to be 3 or 4 days on the East Coast where, you know, like Duquesne did it last year. But would you say your philosophy of non-scheduling is going to change a little bit this year? Or are you just going to kind of keep doing what you're doing?
I like playing good games. I've had a philosophy about scheduling ever since from my high school days. It's never changed. Good players want to play in good games. Good players don't want to play against the easy guys. They want to play against the guys that are supposed to be good.
Mm-hmm.
Now that makes things difficult. That makes the season harder because you got to manage failure. And when you play good teams, there's a chance that you're not going to succeed on that day. So you have to manage failure. It used to be a little easier to manage failure because everyone kind of minded their own business and supported the coach and the players. Now everybody's blaming everybody all the time. And so the players, they're young. They're trying to figure it out. I still want to schedule hard games. We've lost sight of what matters. And like everyone's like sits around, oh, you know, non-conference, you know, blah, blah. We all play for one thing, a conference championship. If you're good enough to win your conference championship, then you're good enough to play in the postseason. If you're not, you got no chance. So our job is to prepare our team for the A10. And the A10's hard. I mean, look at the coaches in this league and look at the places that you play in. Every arena sold out. It's hard. And you know, and I say this like he's one of my, like he's not one of my guys, but he's one of the guys I respect the most in the country and I've met in this business, and Fran Dunphy. He's trying to resurrect that LaSalle program. That's Fran Dunphy, man. The guy's won 700 games. But those are the coaches we have in this league. That even when you have a kind of like night off, Fran Dunphy's the guy you're coaching against. And you know that team is going to be as prepared as any team you play all year. And the league's really good.
Hey, Coach, who do you think is going to coach longer, Rick Pitino or Fran Dunphy?
I know this. They're both coaching longer than me. I can tell you that. Those guys they're good for the game. You know, it's you know, Dumph and I speak fairly regularly, and the day that I got whiffed that he was getting back on the saddle, I called him right away. And the game's better because of Fran Dunphy. The game's better because of Coach Pitino. The players that they get around become better players and, more importantly, better people because guys like them are in their lives. And I love the fact that we still have some of the old guys, the old guard. Nothing against the young guys. That's not where I'm going.
Right.
But I'm glad that we still have some of the old guard that's adjusting to today's moment. But still instilling those old school values in the people that they lead.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So 8 games in, what are some positives you're taking away so far from the 8-game slate? You know, who's kind of surprised you? What have you guys done well that you're kind of excited about? Let's talk about the positives, Coach. Let's not talk about negatives.
Our first half against NJIT is the best half of basketball we played all year as far as how we played. We missed some shots in the first half. If we had made some shots, we'd score 53, 54 points in the first half. And but defensively, if everything you do is based on how many points you score, then you're always kind of chasing your tail, I believe. You have to have a purpose and fight for a personality of your team every day. I believe in rebounding, I believe in defense, and then I believe in playing fast offensively. And that's the first time all year that we played through those 3 different categories for a whole half. That's coming off a win after losing 5 in a row. that tells me that our guys are on it. That the difficulty of losing has not pushed us away from each other. We've obviously we've had guys embrace the leadership. Everybody just like, oh, I want to be a leader. Okay, where are you at when we're dealing with difficulty? Like you're over there in the corner worried about yourself right now. Now when everything gets good, now you want to come in the huddle or come and practice, tell people what to do. No, stop.
Mm-hmm.
He chose to help us during difficulty. He gets the voice now. You need to chill. Don't make you a bad guy, but you need to chill. And our team's kind of figuring all that stuff out right now. And I think we're assuming we continue the way we've handled things since the end of that Florida State game. We were in the Florida State game. We're up 1 with about 4 minutes to go in the first half, and then the wheels came off.
Yeah.
But we were a scarred team going into that game, and you don't get right playing games. You get right in private. You get right I've always we're raising a family. You don't fix the problem with your family in the middle of the movie theater. You wait till you get home.
What movie are you going to? Because I've seen it before.
No, I'm not saying it don't happen, but that's addressing the problem. But fixing the problem, that takes place when you walk in your house. Yeah. And it's the same thing with our teams. It's hard to fix the problems in the middle of the game. You fix your problems back home when you're in your building in practice in the film room, having conversations with the people that are on your team. That's where you fix your problems. And now that we're at home for a while, we don't have to worry about travel. It makes things a lot easier to try and fix these problems.
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of these non-Power 5, and I hate using that term because basketball is basketball, but it seems like you guys are traveling more. Like you almost have to travel a little bit more than you probably would like, and it definitely is kind of showing because I know what it's like. I've been on both sides of the table. It's tiring, and I don't think people not in your own bed and stuff like that. So I want to ask the last question I want to ask. In you are passionate, okay? You are animated on the sideline, maybe more so 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago than you are now, but you still are. And I was watching that West Virginia game, and I saw some former Frank Martin looks. I mean, you have mellowed in your years. You have matured, let's say. But, and I don't want to – this is not a soundbite, but I want you to take me through what goes on in a coach's mind during a game. And the reason I'm bringing this up, a lot of people have really dumped on Coach Hurley, okay? And – you were kind of that passionate years ago when you were coaching. You weren't as verbal. You just gave these stares, like death stares. I mean, right? I mean, and I'm not comparing you, but try to take me through, like, is it you want to win that bad? You just have so much at stake. Like, why do we, and believe me, I've had my own shares as a coach. I've thrown a shoe on the court before. We won't go there. That's why Sam's not here. But just take me through what it's like coaching a game.
Well, first of all, we spend a lot of hours recruiting the players that are on our teams. That's first of all. Like I did a press conference one time, and I'd speak about my years as a teacher a lot. And some guy in the media that's trying to, to your point, get a sound bite, and so he can utilize it. Why Frank's this maniacal moron that just degrades people all the time. said, you're always talking about your days as a school teacher. Would you yell at your students? I said, no. He said, so what's the difference? I said, I don't recruit my math students. They're assigned to me. So I recruit our players. That means that our players are signing up for what they want to accomplish here. When I taught math students, I had to convince them how math was going to help them in their life. When we recruit players, they're telling us what they want out of the experience, and it's our jobs to get them, to lift them to the levels that they want to live at. I never had a student come into my math class and say, Why am I not in your algebra 1? Why am I in your algebra 1 class? Because I can't wait to take calculus 2. I never had that. I never had that.
No.
But every player that we recruit, like, I want to do whatever I need to do because my dream is to play professionally, or my dream is to be an all-league player, whatever it may be. Well, that's what they want. So then my job is to elevate them, to challenge them. Everybody wants, like, let's all clap and be happy and all that stuff. We're in the world of growth.
Mm-hmm.
We're not in the world of winning games. We win games as a result that everyone in our organization grows, me included. Growth is hard. There's nothing happy about going through growth. That means that you got to deal with failure. That means you got to work. That means that you got to learn. That means that you got to sacrifice. Like, I use the weight room all the time as an analogy for growth. The first time you get 135 off your chest, or you squat 250, joy comes from the fact that you did it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now you got to go to 225 on the bench and 350 on the squat. Ain't not fun when you get 350 on your back for the first time and you get down on a squat and you can't get back up. That's not fun. And the time it takes to go through that, you don't get out of bed and say, woo, I can't wait to get 350 on my back and squat and I can't get up. Like, that's not fun. But you have to go through it so you can then have what's fun is the result of growth. And that's what we as coaches are trying to drag out of these guys, because we're helping them achieve their dreams, not our dreams. That's education. As a teacher, my job is not to tell people how many guys got A's or women got A's in my class. It's to help the one that's a D student become a C student. The one that's a C student become a B student. The one that's an A student, I got to figure out a way to challenge them so they keep growing. And that's education, man. And it's hard for people to get better if I just clap. Like, if, again, as a school teacher, you come to my class every day. You're a nice guy. You yes sir, no sir, and all this stuff. You get an F on the test, man, it's going to hurt my soul. You're getting an F on the test. I'm not giving you a C because you're a nice guy. Mm-hmm. You're getting an F. Why? Because that's uncomfortable. So now you're going to come to me and say, man, I come every day. I got it, bro. I respect you for coming every day, but you haven't learned. And so we got to figure this one out. And that's uncomfortable. But that's and when you make people uncomfortable, and now we, not when I say we, I didn't say me, I say we, players and coaches, we signed up in a profession where we get accused every time we don't win that we're failures. And we have to manage that. That creates an unbelievably competitive environment internally, because you have to challenge them to grow, which is hard. And then you have to manage the competitive spirit that you know that losing it diminishes everybody's value in your organization. If you win, it elevates everybody's value. Your manager has a chance to be a GA. Your walk-on has the chance to become a scholarship guy. Your 10th man has a chance to become a starter. Your starter has a chance to be an all-league player or possibly a pro. And your GAs can become assistants. Your assistants can become head coaches. As a head coach, you get to keep your job, which then allows you to keep impacting others' lives. And when you win, you elevate everybody. When you lose, everyone's values diminish. So it's a difficult journey, man. And I'm old.
No, you're not, Coach. You look great.
I got 41 years on the sideline. It's I'm not old by age. I'm 58, but I started this when I was 18 years old. And and so it's when I say old, I don't mean old in a bad way.
I know what you're saying. Right.
And my patient, the older you get, the more. That's why everyone loves their grandfather. Everyone's mad at their dad all the time because he's the one And then you go see granddad, and granddad puts his arm around you and says, "Come here, man. I'm going to show you how to handle this business." And then he gives you a $20 bill afterwards. And then everyone loves grandpa. But dad's the one that's, laying
but it's funny because we're all in that, right? You were we're all the dads, and then we're all hopefully, knock on wood, going to be the grandpas. So it's kind of funny. But, last comment is, people know, like, if you look at all these coaches, Coach Hurley, Coach Knight, Coach Izzo, yourself, you guys are firing intense. Like, what you're getting. Like with Coach Hurley and his last week, what you're getting. Like with you, what you're getting. You sign up for it because you need that structure, and you're trying to get the best out. And I think a lot of people don't understand. It's not theatrical. It's just your passion and your will to get these kids to where they need to be. Correct? I mean, is that a fair statement?
I mean, call me old and boring, but who wins? Who dominated college football for the last 15 years? Nick Saban.
I know, I'm joking with you.
No, I know. Nick Saban. He's an old, crusty, demanding, like, just relentless guy. That don't make him a bad guy.
Nope.
Who dominated pro football for the last 25 years? Bill Belichick. Crusty, demanding, like no nonsense guy. Like, yep. It's college basketball. Danny Hurley, Jim Calhoun, Bob Huggins, all the people, the winningest coaches in the history of the game. Go look at them. My team chaplain in South Carolina was Dean Smith's head manager at North Carolina. Now, Coach Smith didn't cuss. Coach Smith didn't yell. But Coach Smith knew how to get under your skin, and he did it in his own way. But he held people accountable. That's the hardest thing that we have to understand these days. Is it's not about demeaning people. We confuse yelling to demeaning. Like, if I'm going to say something to you that I want to really aggravate you with, I'm not yelling. I'm going to say something really, really demeaning in a low voice so only you hear it.
Coach, can you call my wife and tell her this?
If I had that answer, I'd fix it in my own house. So it's but that we've created a world where people that are just loud, passionate, demanding, we make them out to be bad guys. But Andy Reid, like, seriously, it's like that's why he wins. He's old school, no nonsense. Everyone talks about wide receivers. Who are Kansas City's wide receivers? Do you have any idea?
No clue. They change every year. It doesn't matter.
But I know this.
It doesn't matter.
Against their offensive line, and when they run the ball between the tackles, they win, and they win every year. Yep. And Mike Tomlin and the Steelers, like, you're doing it my way. Like, he's cool because he listens to hip hop music, but he's all about that work and the toughness and the discipline. It's I'm obviously I'm biased.
Yep.
Because it fits my personality, but I like the old, passionate, no nonsense, hold people accountable.
Yep.
No one yelled at me more than my grandmother. And my grandmother was my family's backbone. Yep. And she yelled at me, not to demean me. She yelled at me to make me do right. And that's I'm not saying yelling's the way for everybody, but we've made yelling like a bad thing. Like, no, degrading people is a bad thing. Saying to a player, "You're dumb," that's degrading. You suck, that's degrading. Yelling at people because you're holding them accountable to challenge them, I thought that's what life's all about, man. Getting people ready to deal with life responsibilities.
Yep. Well, Coach, we appreciate it. We wish you best of luck. You're going to stick on one more second, but we're excited for UMass basketball. It's, maybe you didn't start the way you wanted to start, but I think there's a lot of time on the movie, since we're talking about movie theaters, a lot of time in this movie to change a script, and it's going to be exciting, especially in the A10. So, Coach, you're the best, man.
Appreciate you.
All right. So that was interesting. And, it kind of puts things in perspective of kind of a coach and kind of how a season works. A season isn't won and lost over 8 games. It's a full season. So I think they'll be fine. But so I don't know how to take this one. So the first this NCAA net rankings was released. And this NCAA released its debut of the college basketball net rankings, a tool used by the NCAA tournament selection committee as part of its criteria to evaluate a team's resume. Ugh, I don't know. Tennessee's at 1. What do you think about that? And I don't really understand it. Is it just it's more stuff to just piss people off on social media?
I think people are probably like, hey, we need to start backing up some of our, I think it's really interesting. I'll put it that way. They're using an algorithm which is kind of what everybody around the world is doing for whatever business they're in, but they're using an algorithm to kind of say like, how good are these teams when you put in these 6 or 7 variables, right?
Yeah.
Among the factors the net takes into account, it's strength of schedule, scoring margin, net efficiency on offense and defense, quality of both wins and losses, number of factors included making predicting the net, it's updated daily, right? So it is kind of, it's all over the place, but unranked Illinois is up at number 10, right? While you have an undefeated Oklahoma is at number 37. So, you mentioned Oklahoma, but they're number 37, right? And then this year's net ranking also includes a metric called the WAB. We'll call it the WAB. An acronym stands for like wins above the bubble. And it's just like, like there's just so many different variables. And that's where I'm just like, I don't mind these MTEs because I like watching good teams play good teams because you're able to see how good they are without all these like rankings back and forth. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when you look at the WAB wins above the bubble, Auburn's number 1 and it's followed by Oregon, Marquette, Kansas, and Memphis. Right, which are all 5 great teams. So I do think that there's something to be said about that metric. But a lot of people are going to get pissed off when I'm pissed off when I see Kansas at 9 in the net, and I think they're so yeah. Like what are you going to say? So,
you know what I like? Coach Calhoun, baby, number 14, Utah State.
I know, right? So it's like, there's some good things that I see in there that I'm like, okay. But do you think that, and we're big Coach Calhoun fans, but do you think they're a top 15 in the country team in the country right now?
I'm not going to answer that.
Yeah, exactly.
I like Coach Calhoun.
I like him too. I think he can beat anybody on any given day, but would I in our own rankings, which I think we should start, would I put him at number 14, 15 in the country? Probably not, not this early in the season.
Well, look at Pitt, University of Pitt's 5th.
Right. Like, so, and I do think let's be honest. There's really only 6, 7, or 8 games that they're deciding this off of. And for a lot of the better teams who didn't schedule very strong non-conference scheduling, you're not seeing, I'll put it like this. This is one way where if you are a power program and you schedule a difficult non-conference schedule early in the season, you will be rewarded through the net rankings. So, and I know you're big on that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Okay. So let me ask you this. The SEC ACC challenge. I wish it was the SEC Big 12 challenge. Do you know what the SEC record is of all their teams put together right now?
No. It's really good. And when you see how many,
and this is coming out Wednesday, so we're not factoring in last night's games.
Sure.
101 wins and only 16 losses. Arkansas and Carolina are bringing them down 5-2 and 4-3. Think about that stat. 101 wins, 16 losses. I wish, because I think the SEC is the best conference right now. Big 12 is number 2. I wish they could change it each year where like the ACC Big East would be more competitive games than, but I think the game I'm really excited about is tonight is Auburn Duke, 9:15 ESPN, and also that Pitt Mississippi State game will be good over on the SEC network. But what do you think about the SEC ACC challenge?
I mean, I love these challenges, and again, it's like one of my favorite debates. Like over the past couple decades, is which conference has the best basketball teams, and it's you look historically, like the run that North Carolina and Duke went on for several years, and then there was always teams in the background that were nipping at their heels each year. I've never been a big SEC basketball fan from top to bottom, right? I think NIL is changing that a lot with just how much money those SEC programs have. And then you look at the coaches that have been either legacy coaches in the SEC or new hires the past 3 or 4 years. I think top to bottom, SEC has the best coaches.
You think so?
Like, yeah. Like top to bottom, when you look at that list of coaches, you're like, okay, these guys really good coaches. And they also know that, hey, if you don't you've got a year or two to prove yourself. So it's, and then, so, I mean, SEC, ACC, SEC is clearly the more dominant conference right now. But I like these, like you said, I mean, that Duke Auburn matchup, I mean, that's going to be a bloodbath.
Yeah. It's going to be good. What do you think?
Duke has lost a couple close games this year. And I think that's going to be a really fun game to watch. Jonai and Cooper going at it back and forth. It's going to be a good game to watch.
Yeah. What do you think about the Big 12 Big East Challenge? I mean, it kind of goes throughout the week. Tonight you got Baylor and UConn. But another good game is Marquette, Iowa State, which is on ESPN Plus. They don't even put them on the regular network. But that Baylor UConn game, I think both teams have a lot to prove, and two really good coaches and really good teams going at it.
I don't know what to think of UConn right now. We've already probably spent more time than we need to talk about them on this episode. It's like,
I know.
Again, the question is, it's like, would you be, like we talked about earlier, would you be surprised if UConn beat Baylor?
No.
Neither would I, right? Like, but if any other top 10 program was lost their went 0-3, I'd be a little concerned, right? But I'm just not concerned about UConn. If they get blown out by Baylor, that's a different story, right? Then you've got Kansas, Creighton, DePaul, Texas Tech, Marquette, Iowa State. I think it's gonna be a great game. I think Iowa State's they're gonna win that game. I think it's gonna be a close first half, and I think Iowa State's gonna pull out. I think they're going to win by double digits, actually.
Hilton Magic, baby.
But it's going to be a second half, I think. Yeah. So they got Georgetown, West Virginia, Xavier, TCU.
Yeah. I like K-State, St. John. Yeah. That's going to be a good
game.
That's like a Sweet 16 matchup. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it could be a Elite 8 matchup this year. So it's, but yeah, I mean, that's why I like these kind of conference battles, right? Is because it's same thing why I like MTEs, you want to see the best programs playing against each other. Are you going to get a bunch of Cinderella stories out of these games? No, you're not. But you're going to see how good some of these teams are this early in the season, and it forces these teams to play good programs if they're not scheduling hard non-conference games.
Yeah. So, I think there's a lot of games. I want to give a shout out to the Anteaters of UC Irvine. They're 8-0, and also Columbia, who's also 8-0. They're really looking good. I mean, UCI is rated number 1 in the top 25 mid-major poll put to you by collegeinsider.com. So shout out to those two. But it's going to be another great week of college basketball. I mean, let's be honest. It was great. It's been great every week. I think there's going to be some great games and some great challenges. December gets a little bit sluggish because you have some kind of interesting non-conference matchups, but man, conference is starting like tomorrow.
Right.
You've seen some early conference matchups. So that was good, man. College Basketball Weekly, Full Court Network. We're loving it. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Follow us on all the Twitter handles that we've got below, Instagram. Drop us a line, and don't forget to check out the Full Court Press with a college basketball coaches show with Coach Jerome Tang tomorrow from K-State. We're going to talk about gas station spills, broken garbage cans, and Wildcat basketball. So from Sammy and LT, Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching the College Basketball Weekly. Also, thanks to Coach Martin, baby.